This happened to me back many years ago when I was much younger. I'm not really sure how to describe what I was attacked by. It certainly wasn't human, even if it kind of looked like one for a while. I think it might have been a vampire. This happened to me back in the 1990s when I was staying in New York City. I was in my 20s at the time, and I have thought about this event every single day without fail. I just can't get it out of my head. I think I was minutes away from death that day, or even worse. I'm not sure exactly what it wanted me for. It happened just on a normal street in a normal neighborhood. Everything was quiet and peaceful all day long. It was late at night, but the area was pretty well lit. I was at this party to celebrate one of my friend's birthdays. I'd gone there with a few other friends and my roommate just for the night. Everyone was having a good time and laughing, but I had this eerie feeling all night long because pretty early on in the night, while I was in the house, I caught a sight of this guy in my peripheral vision. I tried to pretend I didn't notice him, but it was pretty clear that he was staring at me. At first I shrugged it off, but it became pretty clear that's all he was doing, all night long. I mean, I'd never seen this guy before in my life. I kept catching glimpses of him smiling when looking at me, and I shit you not, I kept catching him licking his lips, like just out of my peripheral vision or when I would glance to the side. Then when I would turn around fully, he would look away lightning quick like he was shy or something. I don't even know who he knew at the party, if anyone at all. I have no idea how he got an invite to that party. I remember I asked my friend at one point about him. I described the guy, and they were just like, "Huh? Who are you talking about?" I told them about the guy standing in that room, and my friend was like, "It was just us in that room. I didn't see any other guys standing across from us." I asked a couple of other friends, and they all said the same exact thing. What the fuck? Was I going crazy? Why was I the only person who could see this guy, or at least remember him? It didn't stop there though. It was like every single room I entered with my friends, he was also following closely behind. I was starting to panic and freak out. I had this deep feeling of dread. But no matter if I tried to tell my friends to look, they just kept saying that no one was there. They would look over, look directly at him, and then tell me with a straight face that there was no one standing there. This man, he was tall, probably a little over 6 feet tall, and he was incredibly pale. He had this short-cut black hair, and he was not wearing anything close to what the other guests were wearing. He was wearing these suit pants and a white shirt. They looked really expensive. He had this creepy stare, and one of his eyes was like glazed over with this golden kind of color. At one point, I had just had enough, and right in front of everyone, I went and loudly confronted this guy, which in hindsight, I think was the wrong move. I was like, "What the fuck is your problem? Why do you keep staring at me and following me around the house?" The music in the place was pretty loud, but aside from that, everything just went dead silent when I started talking to this guy. Everyone was looking around at me. There was this smell coming from this guy. That's what I can remember really clearly. This really pungent smell that I could not get out of my nostrils, even if I turned away or covered my face with my arm. It was like it was just a smog radiating from this guy. It smelled almost metallic, if I had to describe it, like a really old penny. For a time he did not say anything and just stared directly into my eyes. It seemed like forever, but was probably only a few seconds in reality. So I got louder and started asking him again, asking him why he was acting like a freak and why he was stalking me. People were chattering between each other back and forth now. The guy in front of me, his expression changed pretty rapidly. At first, he was shocked when I approached him. I'm not sure why. But that shock quickly became anger. He looked like he was going to punch a wall. I swear at one point I saw his complexion change. I swear I saw it redden the more time I spent confronting him. One of my friends came over to me. It was the birthday girl, actually. I'll just call her Becca for the purposes of the story. She told me that I should just give it a rest, that I was weirding everyone out, and that she didn't find it funny. She came over to grab my wrist and was like, "Come on, let's just go dance and have fun." I didn't even look back at her. I just started pointing at the guy, waving my finger around violently, saying, "I'll stop when this asshole stops." And the guy, he just lunged for me all of a sudden. It was so fast I could not even comprehend it. The movement was just a blur. 1 second he was stood stock still. The next his arm was already shooting out, seemingly without much movement. But he didn't grab me. I just instinctively jerked back, I guess. And that, combined with Becca approaching to grab me, he just grabbed Becca by accident. The next events happened all pretty quickly. The man standing there, again, he still looked angry, but he actually gasped when he grabbed Becca. It was the first time I'd even heard him make a noise. I would not have been surprised if he was mute before that point. Becca screamed and pulled back her arm and stared directly at the man. She looked between me and him, back and forth, and she looked to be really in a panic. Eventually she just tried to play it off and was like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there, that's my bad," to the guy. And then she grabbed me by the arm with a pretty firm grip and pulled me back away to the group. I did not take my eyes off of the guy. I heard him scoff and then quickly walk out of the door, and when he left and the door slammed, only Becca shot a glance towards the door. I tried to just go back to having fun and have a drink or two with my friends, but I just couldn't shake it. I remember that not long after the interaction, my other friends were laughing about our prank and how Becca and I are so weird. I didn't even bother wasting my energy this time. Becca was looking really pale and unwell. At one point she ended up excusing herself and went upstairs. She said she just needed to lie down and not to bother following her. I could not even drink that much, as I had to drive myself back home, so my plan of drinking to forget, it wasn't really much of a plan at all. A few hours passed by, and I could not even stand to be in that house anymore. I was worried about Becca, but I told everyone I was going to go and pee, and then I would go home. The upstairs was off limits for the party, unless you were going to the bathroom, so it was definitely quiet upstairs. Literally, you got up there, and all you could hear was the distant and muffled thump coming from downstairs, coming from the speakers. I could hear something weird coming from upstairs as I was walking up. Just some really strange sounds. I could hear what I can only describe now as sobbing. I thought maybe it was Becca, that she was upset, so I called out to her. But soon after I did, the sobbing pretty much stopped right on the spot. I could have sworn I saw movement at the top of the stairs too, but maybe it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, the flicker of a shadow or something. It wasn't just the sobbing that I heard something else. It sounded like someone was eating something, like someone was biting into something wet. That sound completely stopped too. I figured maybe she just wanted to be left all alone, so I left it and I went to the bathroom. I almost peed my pants when I heard my name being called as I got to the entrance to the bathroom. It was Becca. She sounded really meek. She sounded like she had been crying. I asked her if she was okay, but she did not reply. She told me that she was in the bedroom and for me to come and see her. I'm not sure what it was about that moment, but I just got this insanely bad feeling. My body was screaming at me not to go into the bedroom for some reason. It was just this deep-seated feeling of dread telling me not to go in there. I started backing away incredibly slowly, trying desperately not to make the wooden flooring up there start creaking. I felt the back of my feet come into contact with something. It felt like something wet, something pooling on the ground, and when I spun around to see what it was, I had to grab my mouth to stop myself from screaming. I don't remember too much since I was in such a panic and had this sudden fear in my body. I remember seeing Becca slumped over in the bathtub. The bathtub was filled with blood. It was coming pretty high up. Her face was messed up. There were scratches all over her skin. There looked to be marks in her eyes. It looked like someone had taken something sharp and just jabbed it straight into her eyes as far as it would go, and then ripped it back out. There was something else that was really wrong. I can't quite remember fully because when I try to think about what I saw in my head right now, the image is just blurry. Other things, when I remember them, I can see a clear image when I close my eyes, when I try to think about it in my head. But this, I just can't. But I think there was something wrong with the skin on her body, on her face and other places too. It looked like it was flaking, like it had been torn away by something sharp, and I could hear a drip, drip, drip constantly as I was seeing this, but the tap was turned off and no water was leaking. I started to make a move down the stairs to get out of there. I started running and I was screaming for help, but as I was moving down the stairs, I saw that man again. 1 second, no one was there, and the next second, he was suddenly at the top of the stairs. I stumbled because I was frightened and ended up slipping with my next step and skipping the last few steps all of the way to the bottom. My ankle felt like it was on fire, but I got up and ran outside to my car and made sure to slam the front door right behind me. I had this cold feeling in my body. It wasn't even cold outside, but I felt like I'd been freezing to death in the snow for hours. I wasn't even thinking. I wasn't even using my brain. I didn't really know what to do, and I couldn't really comprehend what I saw. This next part, it just kind of haunts me. I am really close to my car, and I just hear this pounding on the concrete behind me, something leather hitting the concrete again and again. And all of a sudden, I feel this ice-cold feeling all over my face. I can see these long fingernails that looked yellowed, blocking my vision. The hand, it smelled like pennies again. It was enough to make me throw up. I felt like my body dropped even further in temperature with this hand gripping me. I felt like I might pass out. I felt like all of the energy had been drained from my body all of a sudden. I was screaming all the while, and someone from the party, I guess they decided to check on me. It was this older guy. He was a bit of a sleazeball, and was only there because he would not take no for an answer. I was screaming at him for help when he came outside, and he stood there gawping at me, asking me what the hell was wrong with me. It took him forever to finally get close to me. He kept saying things like, "You're scaring me," and "This is not funny," until he got close enough to grab me, and he started shrieking. And then I heard shouts of, "What the fuck are you doing? Get off of her," and I felt myself being released from the grip of this man, and the second I was, I unlocked my car, threw myself inside, and slammed it shut. I saw all of this next part from the car window. The guy who came outside, he was trying to grab and wrestle the strange man, but he could not even budge him an inch. The strange man just grabbed him by the face and lifted him into the air, and it was not long before he went limp and he just tossed him onto the ground. He wasn't dead, but I don't know what he did to him. It was like I blinked, and all of a sudden, he was up at the car window with his face pressed against it. His face looked almost entirely different now. His mouth was wider than any human mouth should ever be. It looked like it was stretched across his whole face. His two front teeth looked normal, but the incisors behind them and the canines, they looked long and pointed. He had flecks of something dark on his unnaturally white teeth. His eyes did not have that golden color to them anymore. They looked almost deep red in color. The second I got inside the car, I managed to use what was left of my common sense to start dialing the cops. I just rambled something about a home intruder who had attacked and killed my friend and gave them the address. All the while I did this, the strange man out of nowhere just hit the glass really quickly. Immediately, the glass was splintered and I let out a scream. After that, I felt heavy pounding on the car, 2 thumps, and I felt the entire car shaking back and forth. I thought I was going to die, but at some point, this thing just ran away. I didn't even see it run. It was honestly just like seeing a shadow move in the corner of your eye, except this was right in front of me, right in front of my vision, so there was no mistaking it. Before he disappeared, he sniffed at the air just a little bit, then looked directly at me, and then that was it. He was just gone. I never saw him again. At this point, more people started to leave the party and come outside. There was a massive commotion. The music was all turned off by now. I guess they must have heard everything that happened. They saw the sleaze on the ground, and people rushed to help him up. It wasn't long before the police were there. Pretty surprising for New York City cops to not take their time. After the cops rolled up, it was a bit of a whirlwind. I told them about the body inside, which made people go nuts. They had no idea. No one in the party had any idea of what was really going on. Tons of girls just started crying. Everyone was beside themselves. People were in a panic. It took forever to get them all to calm down. Even the cops had to help because there was such a commotion. I gave a description of the man and what happened as best as I could, and the sleaze backed me up, saying he tried to fight him off. I left out the part where he basically did nothing to help me. More cops rolled up after that. I had never seen such a response. I'm talking so many cops that the entire block was basically shut down. Unmarked cars, plainclothes officers, and the works. I eventually got taken down to the station to give a formal statement. I wasn't really thinking straight, and decided to just get it all out. I started rambling about what it did and how fast it was. I probably sounded like a nut job. They downplayed my story, to say the least. Said it was likely trauma, making things seem faster than what they actually were. That traumatic events like that, they can make time seem to speed up. I was like, no, I saw this specifically, and they challenged me on it again until eventually, and just gave up trying. They were obviously never going to believe me. Apparently, no one else they interviewed ever saw the guy at the party. I remember that a few days later, they showed up at my house and asked me about something that happened. They told me that people talked about Becca and I playing a prank on them, but I set them straight. I said I was confronting the assailant. They talked to me for a long time about this part. It seemed particularly interesting to them. All these years later, and they still never tracked the guy down. Becca's mother was distraught. I talked to her a few times. She didn't blame me. She actually broke down crying one night after a bit too much wine. She hugged me and thanked me for being such a good friend to her daughter. I felt like a pretty horrible one, but I comforted her all the same. It's something I don't think I will ever be able to get out of my head. I miss Becca more and more every day. This didn't happen to me, it actually happened to my uncle. This happened to my uncle back when he was still in his early 20s. He lived in southeast Kansas, just north of the Oklahoma border. He was living in a tiny-ass town which was practically a village. There was no bank, and the post office only had about 70 boxes. There's nothing to do except drink and hang around and loiter. It gets to Halloween day. My friend calls and says he's picked up 3 girls that they know and they are on the way. They're going to visit some spooky places for Halloween. My uncle is pretty excited. They swing by in a shitty convertible held together with wire and duct tape. The first place the friend can think of is a rundown barn a good 30 miles away from the town. The barn served as an improvised shelter / hospital for a small Confederate detachment to tend to their wounded. The legend goes that Union soldiers found the Confederates and killed them all one by one in the middle of the night as they slept. The legend goes that the barn is so haunted, no one wanted it, so it sits abandoned in ruin. They show up to the barn, which is practically about to collapse, and go inside for a gaping hole in the side. My uncle pulls out a shitty little flashlight to look around with and explore the piles of shit laying around. One of the girls lets out a little squeak and says she heard something coming from the other end of the barn. My uncle, trying to be alpha, says it's probably just a raccoon or a mouse crawling around. Just as he finishes saying that, they all hear this clicking sound that starts from right above them. My uncle gets really scared and whips his flashlight upwards. There is a damn barn owl looking down at them with big black eyes, clacking its beak at them and hissing. The girls all scream as the owl swoops down and flies outside a window. Damn. An hour passes by, and there's nothing more to do at the barn because nothing spooky has happened. The girls say they want to go home because they are scared. The friend convinces the girls to check out another place with them before they go home. The place is a particular field on the state border where lights are seen at night. The urban legend says if you go out at the middle of the night and whistle, a light will appear out in the rolling hills. The light is described as being approximately 7 feet off of the ground and appears several hundred yards away and floats towards you. The light is a torch of a group of Native American warriors long dead who respond to the whistle, thinking they're being signaled by another warrior group to fend off lands from invaders. Friend decides it's a perfect place to go and see if the legend is true. Spend a good hour driving to this field on a single lane back roads. The girls are beginning to complain about how long it's been and whether or not they are lost. They arrive and know they're at the right spot based off of landmarks. They all get out of the car and friend whistles long and hard into the night. They all stand in silence and look out into the fields that are barely visible by moonlight. My uncle does not believe the legend, so he doesn't really expect anything to happen. About 5 minutes later, the friend lets out another whistle. Time passes by and nothing happens again. The girls say it's time to go as they move towards the car. At this time, Uncle agrees and moves around the car to get in. Right as he looks up to his friend to tell him it's time to leave, he notices his friend is still and that there is a faint noise in the air. The noise is barely audible and way out in the distance. It sounds like a cow making its way through a patch of mud, stomping and sloshing. Suddenly, there is a faint whistling sound all the way away, and it's changing tune from low to high pitch. The whistle is followed by distinctive drumming. My uncle describes it as approximately 1 to 2 beats a second. Quiet, but definitely drums. Everyone stops what they are doing, and they focus in hard at the noise's direction, and that's when they see it. It's a dim flickering light that just crested a hill, and it's coming towards them. At this time, my uncle notices 2 things. One of the girls has come up to him, practically shitting herself, babbling incoherently, and is grabbing at his arm. His friend, who up to this point has been still, is now shaking, almost convulsing from fear. The light gets close enough that Uncle can make out the outline of a figure underneath the light. Holy fucking shit. The girls are going apeshit and screaming at this point, trying to drag my uncle back into the car. The friend finally snaps out of whatever fear-induced trance they were in, and he literally jumps into the car. The light is now only 100 feet away. His friend kicks up dirt and hauls ass. My uncle looks back to see that the figure is now standing still and watching. The face is just barely illuminated by the light. They speed back to town, doing no less than 30 miles over the limit. The girls are crying their eyes out. One has pissed all over herself. My uncle is dropped off at his house. He is about to go to bed when he notices a burning pain on his arm, and he looks to see, and it's red. There is a bruise where the girl squeezed his arm during the encounter, He slept with all of the lights on that night. He never talked to that friend ever again. He only told me this story once, and when I tried to ask him details about the figure under the light, his face changed, and he could not bring himself to tell me. I've got a couple of stories, mostly from my friends and I screwing around in the rural Northeast since starting college. I was a suburbanite, despite that having its own happenings until I left, so a lot of this shit is new to me. This was from in between my first and second semesters. I'm not great at green text, so I will only do some if I feel it's pertinent. I was 17 at the time, and had just finished my first semester. During winter break, some of my friends and I made plans to spend the weekend of New Year's together at my friend's house in rural New Jersey. Plenty of woods and hills for sledding, skiing, snowmobiling, what have you. I had arrived the night before everyone else was going, so it was just me and him. Let's call him T. Something T and I have done over the course of the fall season was made a habit of walking and driving around our region late into the morning and just talking. Our sleep schedules were pretty screwed up, and we had some unresolved emotional trauma, and they are pretty powerful tools for friendship building. Anyway, it was like 2 a.m., and we decided that we were going to go out for a drive. I usually drove, because I was the one with a car, but he had just bought a used Ford Bronco that he loved to drive, so I let him. We are about 2 hours into our drive, and we are a good hour or so away from his house, driving forest roads that he was not familiar with. At some point, I am rambling and looking off into the woods, and I feel myself lurch forward hard. Broncos are heavy cars, and we had a good bit of speed going. Over the sound of the tires screeching, I hear him yelling, "Fuck," and then I'm thrown back into my seat by a big crunchy funk sound. Despite never hitting an animal before, I put 2 and 2 together and figured a deer had been on the pool receiving end of the car. Once the car had settled and I raised my head, I found out I was right. About 30 feet or so in front of us, off to the right, there was a deer on the side of the road, covered in what was probably blood. I looked over to T and saw him white-knuckling the steering wheel and taking shallow breaths. He was pretty white-faced. I asked him if he was okay, and despite a quiver in his voice, he said yeah. At the time, I was pretty out of it, but I was sure I'd heard something about checking if a deer you hit is alive and calling local police if so. I said as such, and I went for the door handle, only for him to relock it as soon as I hit the button. I asked him what was up, and, without even taking his eyes off of the road, he said that he thought that something was wrong. He stuttered out that it looked like the deer flew in front of the car, and that it was bloody before he even hit the thing. I turned around to face him, and as I did, I involuntarily scanned the tree line off to the left of the car, and I thought I saw something in the distance. I narrowed my eyes, and what I saw quite literally scared me into complete silence. Whatever it was really, really long, and was slumped up against a tree trunk the way a squirrel would be, but think like the size of a person. After my gaze settled on the thing, I saw it was moving, breathing in the same way that a dog would pant and their whole body moves. I was completely stunned, and after about 3 seconds of silence, T, still not moving his gaze, says, "You see it too?" After another second, he slams on the accelerator. As we haul ass away, I see it react and sliver down the tree and back into the forest. By the time either of us are back in the present and lucid, we'd already broke 70 miles per hour and were far gone. We did not talk much about the event until we got back to his house. I tried to bring it up, but he was clearly very upset by it, so I left it alone. The rest of the week went by uneventfully, but he did not let us screw around in the woods on his property after dark, understandably so. This legend dates back to 1942 in Finland. Despite the massive number of troops in the Red Army, the Finns are able to repel them, pushing them back across the snowy wastes. The untrained Russian troops suffer casualties due to the Finnish sniping campaign, but most die from the cold. Sensing the shakiness of the troops, the Finns spread rumors of a vicious monster living in the forest. Concentrating on more effective conventional warfare, the Finns eventually forget about the rumors. Eventually, reports from the field come back with news that an unknown assailant had been attacking Russian camps during the nights. The Finnish troops encounter numerous abandoned camps filled with mutilated dead. Mystified by the brutality of the killings, the Finns uneasily report the situation to their leaders. They are told that the Red Army is running out of food and that some have begun to cannibalize each other. They neglect to explain the ample amount of supplies left abandoned in the camps. The photograph above depicts the skin of a Russian soldier as found by the Finnish troops.